the Nurses Doing GAMSAT podcast, brought to you by Thankflip GAMSAT. We're here to teach you how to smash the GAMSAT, get into medicine, and become a flippin' great doctor. Welcome to this week's episode of Nurses Doing GAMSAT. Just did my little hair flick to get ready for you guys today. I'm very excited to have a guest here. Before we jump in and I introduce you to Nardia, I want to say good day to Tom. Dr. Tom, welcome. How are you doing today?
Great. Just recovering from my official 2025 first sunburn of the year. It's a rite of passage for every year for me to get scorchingly burnt once and then remember, hang on, I can't go out into the Queensland sun without full protection.
We are here with the wonderful Nardia, Dr. Nardia Curtis, who we were just catching up with offline. I'm so excited to have you. I've got so many questions for you now that you are a doctor, because we first met you when you were not Dr. Nardia Curtis, when you were Nurse Nardia. So welcome aboard. So happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Tom and Marie. It feels like forever ago. And I will say right here and now, I still have not got used to being called doctor. It still just is absurd. Yeah. And there was this period of time when I started at the hospital that the nurses were calling me doctor, and I was like, not coping with that. And so they changed it. So still to this day, some of the nurses in the hospital know me as Sister Doctor.
Yeah.
It's so funny because so many of the med students that we've interviewed have said that they have this moment where they're like in medicine or they're like on the ward or whatever, and they're waiting for someone to tap them on the shoulder and go, "Oh, sorry, this was a little big mistake. You're not actually meant to be here." And now 10 years down the track, you're still like, what? I'm a doctor? What?
I'm still there. I am now, fourth year into my physician training. So, exams this year, and then I'm done with my physician training, and I'm still waiting for somebody to say, oh, look, there was stuff up with the paperwork. Do you want to pick up a nursing shift?
Always the paperwork. Everyone's like, oh, there's a big error. You're not meant to be here. You've passed all your exams, but no, you're not meant to be here. So let's go back. Let's start right from the beginning. Let's talk about where you were before Tom and I met you. What was life like? What were you doing? Where did you live? You don't have to say the exact town, but walk me through it.
Look, I have no skeletons in my closet, so that's fine. I will tell you all the details. So I rewind back. I'm a country girl from a place called Warrnambool in Victoria, down the end of the Great Ocean Road. Grew up there, had my first baby at 19 and was like, right, need a career. So nursing was it at the time. And so, studied nursing at the university there in Warrnambool. So very much a country girl, didn't go to the city, still terrified to drive in Melbourne. And now I live an hour from Sydney, still scared to drive up there. Nursing became my career and part of my identity for a very long time. Loved my nursing career. And look, I always set people straight when they think, a lot of people think that because I went on to medicine that I didn't like nursing. That is far from the truth. I absolutely loved my nursing career to the point that I loved it so much that I just always wanted to know more. I wanted to, I was that annoying. I ended up being a scrub nurse for most of my career. So my nursing career was 11 years long in the end. And I was, the scrub nurse that was like, oh, so what's that? And why are we doing this? And the surgeon's kind of looking at me. Sure. I always wanted to know more, and I got to this point where I'm like, well, this is getting silly.
It's time to make the leap. How long were you thinking about it? Because there's never a one day and then, I thought about it for a day, I'm becoming a doctor. There's always this period, right?
Yeah, there was a long period. I was the kid that was wrapping my sisters up in bandages playing doctor, when I was little. And I was single. My mum was a single mum. We didn't have any money. It was I had no idea what a help debt or a HECS debt was. I didn't even know I could go to uni for starters. So the idea of doing medicine was just, felt like a pipe dream. Even in high school, I was I guess I saw myself as a mediocre student. I wasn't really stand out. I wasn't really somebody who was, getting amazing marks the whole way through. Mind you, if I wanted to focus on something, it was easy. But, you know, if something disinteresting to me, like chemistry, for instance, I would fall asleep in the class. I don't remember being in any of those classes. I assume I was there. Yeah, so I just, you know, it just wasn't really something that felt like it was on the cards. And in my my new grad year or grad year, or, you know, it's different terminology across the states for nursing, I had a friend who, we were quite competitive through university, and he wanted to go off and go to med school or do paramedicine. He wasn't sure. I'm like, yeah, that sounds really cool. And I was like, nah. And he told me about getting the GAMSAT booklet. I was like, oh, yeah. So I ordered it, and I sort of looked through it at the time. I thought, oh, yeah, maybe I could do that. And then it got put away in the cupboard of doom. You know, there's cupboards that everything just gets stuffed in. And then it was literally 10 years down the track. I had, you know, moved through all different areas of my nursing, and I was running our pre-admission clinic. So I was doing full medical history examination. We had the interns were coming in and doing the pre-op exam on patients and missing murmurs, and then they'd go off to the next rotation, and I'm getting yelled at by an anaesthetist because there's a patient who's got a heart murmur that hadn't been picked up, because, you know, I'm supposed to be running it. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to get in trouble for something, I'm going to be doing it. So we kicked the interns out of the clinic, and it became a nurse-led pre-admission clinic with anaesthetic supervision. And I kind of got to the point, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm literally doing what the interns were doing. And I toyed with it, and I talked to my in charge at the time. We were quite close friends, and so I kind of let her in on what the thoughts were and said, look, I'm thinking about it. What do you think? And she was, yeah, because I was her 2IC, she's like, I don't want you to go. And she's like, maybe you could do nurse prac if you don't get into medicine, but yeah, if you got to. And then talked to the anaesthetist who I worked under, and he was this great, very experienced anaesthetist, the sort of guy who just calls a spade a spade. So I kind of, you know, asked him, expect him to say, nah, no way. And he's like, try this year. And he said, if you don't get in this year, try again. And I was just like, to have somebody of his caliber had that level of faith in me that I just needed to do it. It was just right. Okay, I'm doing it. And
so
then I
just to jump in there, because at this point, talk us through your life circumstance, because you're not, you know, at that point you weren't just single traveling through the country on your own, no responsibilities. There were things going on in your life, right?
Yeah. So at that point, I had 3 children. So I had a 14-year-old, a 14, 4, and 6-year-old. So yeah, so 3 kids. Hubby, who, you know, as I was also raising, I guess. So, you know, 4 kids. But yeah, busy, and was working full time. So that was a challenge in itself. So trying to fit the study for the GAMSAT around that, once I'd actually made the decision, was a challenge. But, you know, it's,
so what made you? So how did you make that work? Like, because 3 kids, we've got 1, and that's, you know, that feels to us like it's a lot, but, you know, parents of 3 are like, you know, you see nothing yet, and then you're working, I imagine, shifts as well, or were you kind of regular hours, or what was? How did you make all that work?
At that time, I was working in the elective surgery office, so I had this beautiful sort of thing where I was working 8 till 5, Monday to Friday, which was great. In saying that, you know, obviously it was a demanding job as well, but I'm one of these people that I say, right, I'm going to try running a kilometre, and then the next week I'm running 15, and then the next week I'm doing a half marathon, and then I never do it again. Like, I'm just one of those sorts of people. So I was like, right, once I have my head on it. So I was getting up at 5 in the morning, studying for a couple of hours before the kids got out of bed, and then get them up, get them ready for school, go to work, and then same in reverse at night times. Then I'd study till, you know, midnight, 1 a.m., and then do the same thing over and over again. Rinse, repeat.
Love it. That's awesome. That's great to hear, because there's a lot of people who are like, you know, that they don't have kids, but they're working full time and they feel overwhelmed. Oh my God, it's really hard to get in GAMSAT. And it is at first, but when you're going to have to when you're acclimatized to it, you can do quite a lot with the time that you have.
Yeah, and I think too, like, because I was right on the cusp of that, the 10-year rule with applying to university. So I was like, I can't stuff around with this. I've got this, you know, I think I had that year, and then there was one more year I could have tried before I would have had to go back to uni and do something else to, you know, to meet the requirements. So I just was like, nah, not stuffing around. So I joined a lovely past GAMSAT group and who helped get me through, and that gave me some structure and everything too, so that I wasn't just, randomly reading things and trying to make it work.
So did you do your
favorite.
first GAMS with us, or had you done it before?
No, I'd never done it before. I did it once and then once only because I had a good team behind me. Not to screw anybody.
Yeah. No, yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, but you did the work. You put in the work. Like you made it happen. And so one time, Marie, do you want to kind of jump into the GAMS experience?
Yeah, if you like. I thought you had like a question lined out. You were there like, so tell me. So then explain what that looked like to you. Like, were you coming to the GAMSAT and just being like, science, or were you like for all three sections? How did you feel starting?
So the written section, so the essay section and everything, as you guys well know, and now the listeners know, I can talk the leg off a chair, so that's not a problem. I just write down my brain and it comes out, no worries. So that wasn't so much an issue for me. And look, in the end, with the written section, they want to see that you've got a human being with real thoughts and real feelings, and that's essentially what they want to see in that section. So they'll give you a question and they want you to turn it into something that's that's got some feeling behind it. Which we had a question, I think, that year that was about something to do with alternate reality or dreaming or something like that. And I talked about my experience of a good friend of ours who developed schizophrenia, and talked about that and that sort of stuff. That's what they're after. So that was okay. It was the science section that was horrific for me. Like, oh my God, I still have nightmares about, I can't even remember the words, but like
that's how relevant it is to medicine, right?
Like, I mean, I don't look at the chemical structure of a medication I'm delivering. Like, you've got an idea about it, but that's pretty much what it is. In saying that, though, the science questions, there's only one right answer. So I guess that's the bonus for that section. For the scientific minded, then that is great. But as I said, I think I slept through every chemistry class I was ever in high school. Biology I was better at, and I think the nursing definitely helps with that because you have some idea of the biology. But in saying that, then they throw you a curveball and they ask you about a bird's heart instead of an actual human heart, which...
Talking about, like, I think there was, what was it, the anatomy of gills. There was something about
the anatomy of the gills of a fish has come up recently.
Yeah, well, see, luckily for me, though, when I did my initial nursing back in good old Warrnambool, we had such small class numbers at that time that we joined our biology class with the fisheries class. So I know more about fish's anatomy than you would imagine.
You had a fisheries class at your
university? So it's a rural university. So they have.
Yeah, that's how you know it's a. Tell me you're rural without telling me you're rural.
Fisheries. Look, I went to UNSW. We did not have that.
We had other kinds of animals.
Yeah, we really did.
In the city there.
Shout out to the UNSW people, though. Fully proud here, nonetheless. So then you get through the GAMSAT. You do the big hurdle. You do the work, and that's what I'm hearing. Like, and I know this is Nurses Doing GAMSAT in terms of what the podcast is called, but I feel like for you, the real, like, exciting stuff happens when you get into med school. So, like, I don't want to brush through the GAMSAT, but I also, like, you just did the work. That's the only way I can explain. Is that how you felt too, or were you just, like, freaking out?
Yeah, look, I think, I mean, I can't say I turned up to the GAMSAT and thought I've got this in the bag. Nobody does. It's a horrible, horrible day. And there is no, I still, the amount of exams I sat through now for medicine, actually, no, having said the physician's written exam recently, it was probably on par. But it's horrific. It's exhausting. It's a huge day. You have no idea when you walk out of there as to whether you did well or not. And look, I won't kid anybody to say that I got my mark when they gave me a mark thinking, oh yeah, I'm great. I actually got my mark and cried, because all us A-type personalities go in and you want your 80s and 90s, and it's not a thing. You get a 50 or a 60 and you've just got to pat yourself on the back that you passed. I still remember the exact conversation with my sister. I'm talking to her on the phone. I'm like crying, and she's like, Nardia, you just passed the GAMSAT. Why are you doing this? And I'm like, it's not high enough. I'm not going to get in. Anyway.
That's so interesting that you say this, because I actually was speaking to a student yesterday, and he's like, I'm sitting on a 69 and I got a 6.5 GPA. And I was like, did you apply with that? He was like, no, there was no way I was going to get in. And I was like, you don't know unless you actually apply. And firstly, he definitely has a chance. That's not he's like, I want to get to a Melbourne university. And I was like, cool, but why don't you make that decision when you apply and you have the offer in your hand? Because waiting another year with those sorts of, like, you just don't freaking know.
Yeah,
apply.
there's so much more to it. There's more to it than just your GAMS and your GPA.
Yeah.
There are all these other factors.
Totally. If you get in and you say you get into, like, I don't know, Notre Dame Fremantle, and you don't want to move to Perth, don't bloody move to Perth, but you can decline. It doesn't affect your chances of getting an offer the next year. Not as far as we know, anyway. Not at the time of recording this. But, like, realistically, like, it's so funny when we set all of these super high expectations, and the reality is no one cares about the GAMSAT. They just care that they get the score that gets them in. And, like, probably no one ever asked you about the GAMSAT when you were in med school, right?
No. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what your mark was. It's all and look, I mean, I certainly wasn't shooting for any sandstone college or anything. I just wanted to get in, and I was certainly, Tom said before about how there's so many other factors that come into it, and that's exactly right, and that's what my application wrote on, is my experience, and I applied at a university that asked for portfolios. And my portfolio, I think, in the end was the thing that got me in, because I think the medicine selection process has changed a lot in the last 10 years or so, even more, because they want good people that are going to be good doctors in the end, actually be at the bedside and be able to communicate with their patients and be able to do all that stuff. There's no point having all this knowledge but not be able to transfer that into having a good bedside relationship with your patient, which is a big part of it.
Especially, the schools actually don't do portfolios anymore. Both Notre Dame and Wollongong have removed those from the application process.
Yeah, they've got the Casper or something now, I think.
There's Casper, but because you went to Wollongong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they now have a hurdle GPA, so you just need the middle. I think they had that back then too. They have a hurdle GAMSAT score, so you don't, once it's above a certain level, they don't care. And then they have a whole bunch of bonuses for your experiences that they award you points for. And essentially that is the biggest kind of differentiating factor, how many of those bonus points you can acquire. And so having previous clinical experience, a certain number of years of that, all these different things put you in a better position to actually get into Wollongong, which it was a big moment last year when they had that hurdle GAMSAT score, because it starts to kind of make you think, is the GAMSAT in its last days? Are the other schools going to follow? And
Tom, can you stop it? People have just weed their pants with excitement listening to this. This is very controversial here because
well, it's not going to happen anytime soon. That's just kind of me kind of thinking 5-10 years ahead. Anyone doing the GAMS at the moment, you're going to need to do the GAMS, and you're going to need to do it for the next year. Wow. It's going to be happening. Not all they're not going to can the GAMS in the next 5 years. But Wollongong don't seem to worry about it as much as they used to. And it is more those factors that you're talking about, Nardia. It's like they want people who know people and are good people.
Yeah. Peopling. Turns out doctoring is a lot of peopling, right? And turns out all of the nurses that I have met and who I've worked with hundreds and hundreds over the years, they tend to like people. You don't become a nurse because you hate people, or a physio or an OT, or we say nurses very loosely, Nardia. What we really mean is healthcare professional. Because it's right. You need a good bedside manner. You need to like be able to talk to people in a human way through sometimes the worst experience in their life, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, once you've sat the god-awful exam, you've gotten through, you've hustled your way through, you've worked hard, you've got the kids you're raising, you get into medical school, then what happens?
Well, let's talk about the moment you got the offer. Before we jump to that, because there was a bit of a build-up there. What was it like when you got the offer for medicine?
So I think, and this will be something I guess the other nurses will be able to relate to, we all keep it under our hat, because I think, I don't know many people that have come in from a nursing career that have told everybody, I'm going to sit the GAMS. It's just you keep it really quiet, because I think nursing is one of those weird professions that it becomes part of you. It's part of your identity. It's, you have such close relationships with your colleagues. There's that kind of feeling like you're leaving the ship kind of thing. It's that you betrayed us kind of thing, and so you keep it all to yourself. And then I get this email to say that I'd got in, and I literally screamed. And nearly got the nurse. Yeah, in the hospital. I was on the ward. So my office was situated sort of on like our day stay unit, and so I squealed. And as I said, my in charge, who knew, she was the only one that really knew what was going on. She knew that the result was coming through that day, so she knew what the squeal was about. But then we had to kind of like filter it around that none of our patients had fallen over, or nobody. It was just Nardia. Yeah. And then, of course, from then on, the news sort of got out, and, I had to fess up with a few people about what I'd been sneakily doing in the background.
So funny, because we had this ex-student of ours, her name's Gugu, she's a physiotherapist. We interviewed her a couple of weeks ago, and she said on the podcast, she was like, it was kind of like I was cheating on my profession. Like,
yeah, it does. It feels like you're sneaking around behind everybody, and, so there was, it was weird, because then I was all excited, and I'm like, how am I allowed to be excited? Like, and then it was the weirdness about, telling people how different people would respond. And there was some interesting responses. But you get
the dirt, girl. Tell
us. At that point, you don't really care, right? Because you're in. You're like, yes, I got my next path. I know what I want to do.
You're still going to give you notice, though, Tommy.
You got that walk with 4 weeks, yeah.
Still working in the hospital. We might be back in the same hospital. You don't burn your bridges, right?
Yeah. So, it was nice in the end. Everybody's really supportive. In fact, I just had one of my colleagues send me an audio file that she'd found going through her phone from in the week before I left. And it said, she'd recorded me saying, and you can hear me giggling, going, oh my God, she's recording. It says, when I become a doctor, I'm not going to be a jerk.
The question now is, have you become a jerk, right?
Oh, look, I don't think so. I think, I hope not.
Of course you haven't. You're amazing. So you get this like message, you scream, you go home. What does hubby think? Do you tell the kids?
I don't know. So my eldest still tells me, talks about the day that I sat down at the kitchen table and said to, the family, like, okay, obviously the 2 little ones couldn't have cared less, but like, I'd said, okay, I want to apply to medicine. What does everyone think about that? And she still jokes that she thought, oh yeah, good on your mum, It's never going to happen. And then hubby sort of talks about this whole, this, oh God, because it was like, I've got into Wollongong, and he's like, where the hell is Wollongong? Because, like, as I said earlier, we had literally lived in Warrnambool all of our lives. I met my husband when I was 16 years old. Like, we've been together forever. We were there with our families. We'd never gone anywhere, and barely even travelled, like, interstate at all. And I'm like, oh, guess what? We're moving interstate, and we've got to go by X date, and yeah, and that's right. We're still renovating our house too, that we then had to suddenly put together to put tenants in there.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I remember calling you and you saying, yeah, we're going to Wollongong. And I was like, okay, like, what's going to happen with hubby? And you're like, he's a concreter. He's fine. He'll get work anywhere. And
he sure did. He's so busy up here.
They build stuff everywhere. I mean, he couldn't have been sad to be moving by the ocean. Like, you live in a tropical paradise.
Yeah, well, we do. Well, I guess Warrnambool and Wollongong, weirdly enough, with similar names, they're also very, very similar. And so we kind of just moved somewhere a bit warmer that pretty much is the same as our hometown, just with the lack of family support, I will say, was a challenge. Because, you've got these other people that have got, mum just lives up the road and can look after the kids and everything. And we were we ended up getting an au pair for 12 months of it, just because with placements and everything, it was absolute chaos. But, you do what you got to do.
I was at a kid's birthday party the other day, and I was talking to one of the other mums, and she said, "Oh, I'll just drop like so and so her kid off to her mum's place for a couple of hours because she's got a couple of things to do." And I was like, "That is the real flex." Okay, at our age, having people that you can drop your kid to that you love and support and loves your kids, and like that's a flex. That's like, I don't care if you drive a sports car. Do you have babysitting? Like, do you have a backup if you're running late for school? That is what the real thing is.
And so I guess having started having children at 19, my mum was always working. She was still in that career phase. So we sort of our kids have always been in daycare and everything. So it was isolation from a distance perspective, but it was still the same old.
Got there. Like, you made it work. You're problem solving and go, cool, I got this issue. I got to just fix it somehow. Like, let's do it. So then what happened when you got into med school? Was it all like, oh, this is so easy and I'm just going to work my full-time job and also go to medical school?
Yeah. So no, definitely not. So, and I do, because I still get a lot of nurses who will say, oh, what was it like? I'm going to say this right here, right now. I had no idea how much I did not know. You're just skimming the surface with the knowledge that you do have as a nurse. And even then, that's 10 years of nursing under my belt. And I still, there was still so much to know. And I had this whole, I'm doing a postgrad. It's shorter, like it's, easy. What they don't tell you is it is actually the full 7 years jammed into it.
That's right.
So it's like med school on steroids.
It's relentless. It's like the workload is just full on.
It is. And then it's the whole, okay, well, now we've done the first 18 months, but guess what? Now you've got to do that, but while you're doing placements as well. So it's just this absolute whirlwind. But, it was great. And I think too, what was nice is, you get this group of people that are just like you. I finally felt like I've slotted into a community of people that were like me. Obviously, you get people from different backgrounds and everything, but it's, it was nice, and you'll just bounce off each other, and everyone's got the same problems. And I think it was nice too being at Wollongong because there's different, you get different group of students there as well. So it was very much, it felt home. Yeah, it was good.
Oh, I love that. I called one of our old students the other day and I was like, oh, how's first year going? And they were just like, it's a lot. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah, it is. It's drinking from a fire hose.
And it's every week. It's like, it doesn't stop. It's not what I found. It wasn't the stuff wasn't particularly difficult. It was just the amount, the size, the quantity of it was intense.
Yeah. And for someone like me who likes to obsess over something, you just can't. You've just got to learn, you just got to get that covered. And I would be down, the rabbit hole always, trying to work out, why this cell receptor is doing this and all sorts of things. And it's like, oh no, subject change, we're under this now. It's like, oh God.
Yeah. These days, when our boot campers get into medicine, we run a class on what to expect in the first 6 months, because it's just such an adjustment period, and just knowing what's going to happen, any kind of tricks and tips and things. I kind of go through that to help them adapt to the change.
I think we forget what it was like going from high school to like uni or wherever it was when you did your undergrad, because that first 6 months there is a really big adjustment period, and you just forget, because by the time you've done third year you're not thinking about the first 6 months of your degree. You're like, oh yeah, because you know how to do it at that stage. Just like at the end of your med degree, you were fine. Like you could drink from the fire hose and be like, bring it on. Like,
Yes.
And then you started your internship.
yeah, and then that's a different fire hose.
That's another level as well. Like,
Yep. And then you spend the next couple of years forgetting all the science behind it. And then you're at my stage in the physician's degree where you've got to remember it all again. It's like,
oh, that physician's exam. I know one of my friends sat it, and she sat it once and she failed it, which is not that uncommon, to be honest.
No.
And then she sat again, and I remember her celebrating. She's like, I got a 51. I'm like, I just
well, that was me. I actually failed the first time by only 3 marks.
it was very close. It was like a 49 or something. It was like,
it's like the GAMSAT. You've just got to, but then I went back the second time and made it answer what for.
yeah.
you showed it.
Like,
Yeah,
you just need to get above the threshold, right? And then you're
It's exactly the same torture as the GAMSAT, basically, that exam. It's horrendous. But anyway.
So you're telling me that the GAM prepares you for later on in some way, shape or form. Like
yeah, just how disgusting it is, if that, yes.
So then you get through your medical degree. You start then as an intern. Tell me a little bit about what's happened since you, like, how long have you been since an intern to now? How many years is that?
So I am now PGY 5, I think. I started in COVID, so that was another, interesting thing. It's like, oh, here is your internship, and I started in emergency department. That was my first rotation, is emergency department, and then we get all these public health sort of things coming through, going, hey, guess what? Welcome to medicine as an intern. We now have a virus that we know nothing about that is going to come and possibly kill us all, which is what we thought at the time.
Yeah.
And that was, hard enough to adjust to a job that you, again, still waiting for somebody to tap you on the shoulder. I actually paid for my nursing registration again in my resident year, because I was like, don't know if I'm in this. This is terrifying. And, it was that whole, and again, it's part of your identity. It feels like, I don't know whether, Marie, you did this when you got married. It's that giving up your maiden name kind of thing. Giving up my nursing was like taking that part of my family away. It was weird. I sort of clung onto it, $500 or $700 a year, and I still paid it like a moron.
Oh, thank you for being so honest, because so many people feel this way and no one talks about it. Like, you're actually not weird as it sounds. Not weird. Like, that is what it's like. Totally. Oh man. So you are COVID doctor. I can't imagine the terror. Just because the ED as well as your first rotation, that's rough, because you get it.
And then I did the second rotation in ED too, like a sucker, because they said to us, because it was all very new and they weren't sure about staffing, and they said, okay, well, you have the option of, and I've got, all my kids are asthmatic, and I'm asthmatic, and I was like terrified for, I was literally going home. We had a pool at the house we're in, and there was a pool bathroom. So I was literally going home, showering in that bathroom, getting rid of all my work clothes, and having like a quarantine area for me to keep the family safe. That's how over the top I was about it, because we were all terrified. And
at the time, that was legitimately a smart thing to do, the clever nice thing to do.
And then it was like, okay, well, you guys have the option. Do you want to move on to your next rotation, or do you want to stay where you are? And I was like, stay here. I know what their protocols and everything are here. I know that I'm safe here for the moment, and stayed there. So I did 6 months in ED in COVID.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so then
after that 6 months, you were ready for anything. Like
I was like,
no rotation after that was too much for you at that point.
Well, I went to rehab next, so I was just like,
we're doing some work, guys. Anything? We're doing some stretches. We're doing the stretching.
Your first rotation, Tom, was surgery, and that was pretty full on as well.
Ortho Jerry's. So it's like
yeah. That would be full on. Everyone's in theatre leaving you to sort out the medical stuff.
Pretty much. All the registrars were like, we want to be in theatre, so you look after the dying elderly here. Tom,
Yeah, the person
you're the doctor now. And the nurses tapping me on the shoulder. What do we do, doctor? I'm like, who? Who's the doctor? Where?
Ask somebody. Oh, wait, that's me.
Long as well. You were like 7 till 7 most days. You were
well, that's a surgical rotation. That's kind of to be expected.
And that's when you started drinking coffee. Like you didn't drink coffee before that rotation.
No, the registrars were like, no, Tom, just have it. Just have it.
Just have the
You're going
coffee.
to need this. Do it for us. I'm like, all right. And they would buy. I was like, all right, fine.
Yeah, the coffee drinking's a bit of a rite of passage from medicine. So be prepared, those who are coming into medicine. If you don't drink coffee, you will be shunned.
It's like a cultural kind of bonding experience.
Yeah, it is.
Part of the culture. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. All right. And then your internship year, and then so when did you decide to go down physicians training?
So you kind of it's that weird thing in medicine. Nursing there's so many things that are similar, and there's so much contrasting. So nursing, you do your grad dip, and then your grad year, and then you bounce around a bit, and you kind of get a bit of time to think about what you want to do. Medicine doesn't really. People don't tend to do that as much. It's kind of like, okay, you do your resident year and then you've got to choose your pathway. So mine was sort of a decision by elimination. I know with the way my brain works, if you put me in a room with 4 walls and I would go crazy, and then my patients would have to deal with that. So I'm like, well, I can't do something that's going to be office based all the time. And I looked at the fact that I'd been, this year I have actually just now this month I have been in public health system now working for 20 years this year. And so I've grown up in public hospitals. Like I've literally grown up in public hospitals. So the idea of not working in the public setting just feels odd to me. And then it was like, O&G, no, GP, no, surgery, even though I'm an ex-theatre nurse, I worked alongside surgeons long enough to know that, I didn't want to get caught in for, O&G Caesars in the middle of the night for fetal distress and all those sorts of things. I was like, nope, not for me. And I just loved the medicine. I loved the, the nitty-gritty behind it. So it was like, well, physician's pathway it is. And, so here I am.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing when I was at that point. I was like, surgery, I don't want to be in that room all day.
Yeah.
And GP wasn't quite the thing. I was looking at physician's training. That was kind of what I was interested in. Yeah. And so then run us through what life was like at that point, because you still got 3 kids and a husband, and life's going on, and you're starting to look at physician's training, which is. Did you have to do an exam to get onto that?
No. So you just put through your applications. In fact, it's not as bad. Like the surgeons, the poor guys try and get onto the program for years and years and years. Whereas physician training, not so much. You apply to your hospital, and then you pretty much get in. So it's more the exams down the track that are horrific. So they kind of lull you in. They go, "Oh, this is great. Come and do this," and then you're 2.5 years in or whatever. Like, guess what? Here's the exam. Cheers. Good luck.
Bye.
Now pay your fees.
And then when you have done the physician's training, what does that open up for you to do potentially afterwards?
So, all your medical subspecialties, it opens up all those sorts of avenues. So they haven't yet put in a end of training exam for the subspecialties. So you can just choose where you want to go. But you have to apply, and of course, have somebody take you on. It just depends on how much, how many applications to that specific field as to how difficult it is to get in. And then they place you, and then they set you to a network. So you move around your hospitals within that network in your advanced training. So
just for people listening, because they might not know, so that includes things like cardiology, neurology, oncology.
Yep. Endocrinology, what else? Gastroenterology, respiratory medicine, lots.
Yeah. And you're looking at oncology.
Yeah. Looking at oncology, I had a great rotation here. We've got a absolute icon of the oncology world down here that set up the Cancer Care Centre. So I had the absolute privilege of working under Professor Klingen, who is a fabulous man, and now Prof Chantrell, who's also fabulous and running our department. And I just, looked at these people and like, yeah, this is it. Loved the job. Even with the, people sort of look at me and like, oh, oncology, oh, what, but I don't shy away from the difficult conversations around those sorts of things. Unfortunately it's a part of our makeup that sometimes the DNA goes a bit wild, and we end up with cancers. It's not something that's going anywhere, and it's how you relate to people in that experience that is important. But also oncology is going in all different directions at the moment. So for somebody like me whose brain doesn't sit still, there's going to be so much change, and there already is so much change. You're thinking about when I first started nursing, you get these people coming in with these big tumours that you could not do anything about, to now you just don't really see that anymore. They're all very treatable, with the radiation therapy and the targeted treatments that we have. There's so much changing. It's all very exciting.
It's getting better and better. So growing up, when I was a kid, my mum worked as a receptionist at the Cancer Care Centre at St George Hospital. And so I have these like childhood memories, which is actually kind of weird now I think about it, where we'd go and pick my mum up from work. She might finish at 5, but my dad would drop me there at 4:30. God knows what he did now I think about it. Just drop me there at 4:30 and go and get your mother. And I'd be like skipping around the cancer care ward. I'd like fan out all the my mum would be like, go and fix the magazines, Marie. So I'd go and fan them all out. And I just think, there's people dying there. I had no clue. I'm sure though, if I really think about the positive there, they were probably like, oh, look at that child.
Oh, they would have loved it. Yeah, yes.
Maybe that's why my dad dropped me there, because my mum probably knew they needed. I had no care in the world. I did not realize these people were dying at all. I was just like, yeah, let's go.
Well, as you don't at that age, you probably just brought a nice ray of sunshine in every time you went in there.
Oh, my mum, big hugs and kisses. You know what it's like when you're like 5 and 6 and you see your mum, you're like, yes. Just haven't seen you since this morning. I hope that never ends with my 7-year-old. I fear that the time is near where she's like, oh, hi, mama.
Yeah, as a mother of teens, I can't promise that's going to stay.
Oh, no, I'm not looking forward to it. Just want to keep it small forever, but also I want to skip those ages where they just become a bit bratty. I'm not excited. I'm not.
I haven't worked out how to skip that yet. I'll let you know if I figure it out.
I don't think we just need to face it head on.
Kind of like the GAMSAT. You just gotta. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. You have to go through it.
That book too.
It's like life skills. We're going on a bear hunt. Yeah. Like that is literally life skills. That book. So then where to next for you? I mean, I know you're busy with lots of extracurricular things, and maybe before we wrap up and look at like future, you've been really busy because you are not just doing physicians training. Like you are kind of, why don't you explain what else has kind of been up?
So I'm one of those yes guys. I can't say no to anything, and fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, my colleagues have noticed that. So I've just this year been nominated for my 3rd year running of one of the representatives for our trainees in the hospital. So I have meetings with exec and everything, working out how to try and make training better for us. So taking feedback from my colleagues about what's going right, what's going wrong, and trying to make things better.
And how's it going? Do you feel like people listen? Are they really like genuinely?
Yeah, definitely. In my workplace, they're very receptive. They are trying their backsides off. As anyone in medicine would know, at the moment, there's a lot going on with the bargaining awards for trying to improve pay and conditions for doctors. I think nursing, that's another thing the nurses will have to be ready for, is that nursing have had a very, very strong union behind them for years and years and years, and have been very good with industrial action, and medicine's only just getting there, and there's a lot of historical stuff behind medicine which makes it very challenging. So don't expect you're going to be rich in medicine. It's not the case. It took me, I think, 2 years of working in medicine before I was getting paid what I was getting paid in medicine. So I actually in nursing, I took a pay cut to do medicine. So all that industrial action is all sort of coming forward at the moment, and I'm also a union delegate for the hospital as well. Again, yes, guys. So I had the pleasure of sitting at Ministry of Health just before Christmas there, and seeing how it feels like running up to a brick wall and just bouncing off it constantly. But they're trying really hard.
I've done a bit of industrial relations work and working with unions, and it can be a challenging fight, but also like really rewarding to be able to see changes that need to happen. That's really looking after people. And I think sometimes if you've got experience in a hospital that's maybe not as receptive, it's really nice to hear that when there's problems and people are brave enough to go and face them head on, those problems they're not problems anymore. They're like, people genuinely want to help other people. No one's like, you're a team. That's what I'm hearing here. Like, you're really working as a team, and your hospital's being really, really open and receptive to that. So I think maybe people need to hear that. You know, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but also people want good for everyone. Everyone wants a win-win.
Yeah, and it all rolls down to the patients in the end, because, you know, ultimately everybody wants to be able to provide best care for their patients. So that requires time, that requires staffing, that requires safe work environment. So all those things. So the nurses are fighting for their, you know, their side of things with their bargaining agreement, and same with us, and the allied health unions are also doing the same. So I think public health, there's a big shake-up happening at the moment in public health, and I'm very excited to see how it pops out the other side, because I think it's going to come out for the better.
Oh, Dr.
Amazing that you're part of
Nardia.
it. You're in there. You're in the thick of it, making things happen.
Yes.
Freaking ass,
You're a
taking names.
superwoman.
Great.
Mum of 3, ex-nurse, in medicine, working your ass off, in the union. You're a delegate fighting for the rights for the trainees. What does the future have in store?
Don't know. I you know, the next thing on the list, I think, is my medical administration side of things, but there's not enough time in the day.
Do you sleep? Do you know what sleep is?
Yeah, look, I may not. The other night, I sort of had an idea for an app, and I slept about 4 hours because my brain jumped onto an app idea. I just, you know, I really need to tranquilize myself somehow. But you know, I'm one of these people. I see where something's not happening as efficiently it could be, or as well as it could be, and I just like, why? And I just want to fix it. And instead of saying somebody should fix it, I'm like, I'll fix it. And then I'm like, oh great, I've got another hat on again.
You sound like some of my ADHD students, just saying there's some similarity there with some of the behaviors. Loving it.
You're getting here first.
I can see it.
Well, it sounds like you've been able to harness it in a positive direction, though. Right? Like you've gone very far. You're thriving, and you're kicking ass, and you've used it in a very effective way. So that's a positive for everyone who might be feeling the same way.
Yeah, it's a challenge, definitely a challenge, but it's trying to pull the brakes on is the hardest part.
I myself am very happy that you're a yes woman, because when I said, will you come onto the podcast, you immediately said yes. And I love that, because I think we need we want to showcase really positive examples of what it's like for people to actually go out and grab life, not just wait for life to happen, and show people, because there's going to be people listening to this that were you 10 years ago in a rural town, in your bubble, doing your thing, absolutely loving it, but knowing there's more, and maybe having not as much bravery as you had with those first initial steps to step out. And so I absolutely love and appreciate that you took time out of your very busy schedule to share with us, because you are inspiring the next generation. You're inspiring your daughters 100%. I can say that without a doubt. And you're inspiring the next generation of people to step in and do what you've done. So I really, really do appreciate you and your story. You. And we want to hear in the next 10 years where you go as well.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes, as long as I don't end up in a psych ward.
I mean, you could.
Well,
but
you might end up running one, if anything.
Yeah. I don't think physicians training gets you there. Is that right? That's a different training.
Yeah, no. Anything's possible. Anything's possible.
You never know.
Yeah,
Tom, is there
I
anything
love
else
the way
you
that
wanna
you've faced the hard things, and I think that's kind of the theme here is that you have seen something that's other people are afraid of or don't want to face, and you've gone, what's going on there? I want to figure this out, or I want to do it. Getting into medicine, and then getting through all the different steps along the way, and physicians training, and then oncology, and then the unions, and just you've done really well there, and I think that's really inspiring, and it's a great example for people who are wondering, can I do this? Is this possible for me? And having a lot of that self-doubt coming up at an early stage in their journey.
I've always been sort of a why not girl, and I always think, what's the worst that can happen, and that's the thing. Like and also don't ever tell me you can't. That's the other thing. If somebody ever tells me I can't, I remember when I fell pregnant with my first, and I'm this 19-year-old girl working in a bowling alley, and this woman in her 50s wandered up to the counter who was a regular bowler, and she'd found out, because the gossip got around that I was pregnant, and she said, how are you gonna manage university? I said, I'm just going to university. She goes, you won't be able to manage that, Nardia. I was like, just watch me.
Yes.
So.
That was, I don't know, maybe it's a thing, but Tom is the same. Like when he got diagnosed with osteoporosis, I hope you don't mind me sharing this story, he was told to you're going to have to go on the meds. And he was like, there's all these other options. Why don't tell me what I have to do? And fully cured himself with no meds. Just because he was ballsy enough to look into all the medical research himself. And to find...
The word cure is a bit strong, but I reversed it. Yes, I reversed it, and it's an ongoing journey. Like it's going to be lifelong. But yeah,
as the meds would be a lifelong journey when you've got something like that. And I think it's just that I don't know. You two are very similar. It's like say you can't do something, and you're like, effing watch me do it. Then. You just gave me the motivation to prove you wrong. Tom, don't go wash the dishes. You can't. You can't wash the dishes.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Damn it.
Doesn't work if I know what you're doing.
Damn it. Well, thank you so much for your time, Nardia. I really appreciate it. Tom, did you have anything else to wrap up with? Are we good to...
No, that was fantastic. I appreciate your time, Nardia. This is really cool. Amazing.
No, thank you guys so much. Big thanks again, because you guys, I think, helped me along the way to get me that head start. So, it's been fabulous, and it's been a lovely relationship with you guys thus far, and I hope it continues into the future.
Yes, I'm excited.
Excellent.
Have a great one, guys. Bye for now. Hey, I have a cool gift for you, just for listening to the Nurses Doing GAMSAT podcast. We do some of our best work in our Facebook group called, you guessed it, Nurses Doing GAMSAT. It's free to join, and every day we're sharing actionable guides, tips and tricks, and really just how to smash the exam and get into medicine. You can join today by searching Nurses Doing GAMSAT on Facebook. Thanks for listening to another episode, and I'll see you next time.